Welcome to the Handcrafted Podcast, the business of making things. I'm Paul, founder of Philadelphia Table Company and the Handcrafted Network, and I believe great craftsmanship deserves great business strategy. This podcast is for makers who want to build not just great products, but a thriving business. Each episode will dive into the mindset, systems, and skills that turn craft into success. All right, guys, welcome back to the Handcrafted Podcast. Just a reminder, this podcast is brought to you by the Handcrafted Network, an online community and classroom for you to learn how to scale and grow your woodworking business. We have modules in there about advertising, about marketing, about accounting, about sales, about how to acquire new leads, all that sort of stuff. Check it out, thehandcraftednetwork.com, or send me an email, Paul at the Handcrafted Network. We have an amazing group of woodworkers in there and artisans and all that other stuff. So it's been amazing getting to know all of you guys there, and it's been amazing getting to know some of you guys who've jumped over from the podcast to the group, or the community. So great to be connected with all you guys. All right, so today I wanted to talk about something we actually talked about on the group call yesterday for the Handcrafted Network. One of the members was talking about how a client decided to move forward, they paid a deposit, and then they asked for the deposit back. And that is so painful, especially when it's like a big ticket thing. I think for him it was something like a $14,000 thing, and then they needed send $7,000 back. So that happened to me a few times before, and I'll tell you actually a pretty funny story. So one time I met with a client, and they really liked live edge stuff, but they weren't aware of who George Nakashima was. So in the design presentation, I referenced him in a few of sort of like, hey, we'll do a George Nakashima style base or top or something like that. And so after the meeting, he got very, very interested in Nakashima. So he got books. Started researching him a bunch, went to the Nakashima studio. For me, fortunately, I'm actually personally only about a half hour from the Nakashima studio. It's about an hour from where our workshop is. And he went to go visit George Nakashima's spot and then ended up pulling his deposit from me to buy a table from Nakashima. So I figure, hey, if I'm going to lose a client, I could lose it to George. That's totally fine with me. But at the same time, it really hurt because it was a pretty expensive deal. We were doing chairs and a table. I think it was about $20,000 or $25,000 ticket that I had to refund, so $12,000 or so. And to me, that was super painful and hurt a lot. And so I used that sort of as a lesson to learn what are the things we can do to wow clients along the way. That's sort of a rare situation, but there have been other times where people have sort of like questioned or wanted to maybe pull a deposit or something. So we've developed different systems within our sales process that keeps clients in the queue, essentially. So I just wanted to review those things and also some things that we had talked about in the call, some sort of takeaway things that I thought were kind of cool and unique that some other people are doing as well. So one thing that we do at Philadelphia Table Company is, and I'll talk to you about sort of the whole sales process. So for us to do any sort of work, that includes samples, that includes drawings, that includes sort of diving deeper into conversations. That requires a 60% deposit. So what I like to do is in the sales process in the front end is give like a proposal. So what I'll do is say, hey, we're doing this piece. It's going to have this detail from this table that you referenced, or these feet from this sideboard you referenced, or like this hutch that you referenced, etc. So we sort of like put all of that stuff together in a proposal, and I say, hey, the price is going to be X. Once they sort of agree on the price and we have the proposal outlined, I say it's a 60% deposit to get into the design phase. The design phase is where we start to really nail down what the designs look like and sort of send over samples and all that sort of stuff. And what I do is I really hype up the design phase. So I'm like, hey, wait till you get to the design phase. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And we have a longer queue time. And I think a lot of times people also get frustrated with queue times. So I wanted to find a way to make that sort of like a feature and not a bug. So what I tell people, and it's just kind of a funny little sales thing that I say to people, which is while you're waiting in line, we distract you by going through the design phase. So sort of like you're in Disneyland, there's sort of distractions along the way. And people tend to really like that. And the other thing too is like people start to understand that, and it's all part of the narrative. So queue times, if you guys are getting pushed back on queue times, I use queue times as part of the narrative where it's like, hey, it takes us a long time to make this stuff. We're popular, so working through queues is tough. But at the end of the day, waiting an extra few weeks or a month or something is worthwhile to have a piece that's going to last you forever, right? So it's like we may not hit this Thanksgiving, but we'll hit all the other future Thanksgivings. So I try to talk to clients a lot about that in like the pre-sales part. So this way, when they're in the queue, they don't get impatient and sort of say, hey, I'm done, I want to bail out. The other thing too is while they're sort of waiting in that line, we kind of have these different sort of checkpoints that along the way keep them engaged. And I think that was really important. I wanted to create times that you reach out and connect with the clients, sort of like broken up. Because at first we would say, hey, get the deposit. And then it would be like, hey, like, a few months later, we're starting your project. But what we started doing was doing the different checkpoints throughout. So it's like you get a deposit, we get the deposit, we immediately send an email saying, hey, we're excited to work with you. We're excited to work on your project. It's in the queue, connecting you with our operations and our designer. And then sort of a week or two later, we send over designs. And then about a week after that, we send over the materials. So after that, there's kind of a little bit of a gap. We send over like samples. So after that, there's a little bit of a gap, but we try to then touch base with them when the materials are ordered, and then when the materials arrive, and then when it starts when the project starts, and then sort of we touch base again when the piece is ready for delivery. And we'd be like, hey, the piece is amazing, yada, yada. So the different foolproof things that we've done too, and the other thing that was talked about in the group as well was like somebody was delivering a piece or showing them an update, and then the person didn't like the stain color that the whole table was already. And we used to go through that all the time. So what we started doing my operations director was very, very adamant about this when she started, was like, hey, we need to send samples and we need to send drawings with every single piece that we do. Because for us, that's like the insurance policy. So we've started curating a specific list of like signature finishes that we've done. If you don't have time to do that, or maybe you're just starting out, what we used to do was just send, there's like a screenshot of like Minwax finishes or something you could find. And we just say, hey, pick a stain here. We'll make a sample and we'll send it to you. So what that does is it kind of just helps focus, because I think sometimes clients have like sort of paralysis of choice. So what we've done recently is we've created like a signature finishes page, which allows, it sort of like gives like boundaries and barriers to what it is. And we say, hey, it's kind of a range of everything from whites to dark browns to natural walnut in there. And I think we maybe have, I don't know, like 12 or so finishes, which is enough to like really get a good spectrum of color and a good spectrum of what people are looking for. So we send a physical sample now, and we started doing that a little while back, but we just started doing the signature series thing. So we send a physical sample to their address, to their home, and we then follow up and say, hey, what do you think of the sample? And as soon as they approve it, we then know we can move forward with that sample. So there's no, for me, the biggest fear when I was starting out was like delivering the piece, because it was like there were no photos. I mean, we didn't do shop drawings. We didn't have sample approvals. We were just going off of like a reference picture. And I remember I used to get such bad anxiety that we were going to show up and like they're not going to like the table or something, or they're going to be like, this isn't what I expected or whatever. So I've tried to set up all these sort of systems and checkpoints that make sure that they understand exactly what they're getting. There's no surprises. There's no, misled expectations or anything like that. So I think setting up the expectations is really important. So once they sign off on the sample, we know, hey, this is it. We're locked in. If we bring it to them and they don't like it, we could be like, hey, look, you signed off on this sample. You sent us an email back. You said this was the sample that you liked and you approved it. So from here, if you want any changes, we're going to have to charge you for that. The other thing too is we started doing drawings as well for every single piece. I know for some of you guys that's maybe not sustainable, but I definitely recommend learning a program like SketchUp or Fusion 360 or something so you can send samples. So you can send drawings, because that's another insurance policy as well. To be able to say, hey, we're doing this 72 inch sideboard, this 6 foot sideboard, 6 foot by 36, all that stuff. If they sign off and approve on it, you deliver it and it's exactly what the drawing is. They can't be like, hey, this isn't like the drawing. Or so there have been times, for example, where we've delivered tables and their chairs don't fit between the legs. And it's like, you guys approved the drawing. We had no clue what your chairs were. And since you approved the drawing, like we can change the legs for you, and we will, but it's gonna have to we're gonna have to charge for it. So that's like a big protection as well. So we try to do all these like different sort of protections throughout, and to prevent people from. And we've never had the only time I've ever had to refund that the deposit was that Nakashima table I referenced early, but because we've sort of set up these systems, we've had a pretty 99.9 success rate of deposits going through to finished pieces. There was early in the time where we would deliver something and somebody didn't like it, and then we had to give like a refund. And I think that's maybe only ever happened 3 times in the history of the company, but they were enough times to be impactful to set up this sort of process along the way to really protect against that sort of stuff. And previously we would do no drawings for items that we've already like made before. So it would be like, hey, you found this on our Instagram. We'll just make it at a different size. But, again, that's sort of the problem as well. Like that's where you sort of run into issues, because it could show up in like a different, I don't know, a different the client may be expecting something completely different. So again, it's just trying to set those expectations. The other way to, the other thing too is like setting expectations as far as queue time goes, sort of how the process works. So before anybody even signs and moves forward with us, I make sure, hey, you understand the process thoroughly, and this is how it's going to look moving forward. All right, guys. So hopefully this one was helpful for you guys. I know this is sort of a big thing where it's like, what is the sort of process that most people work through? This is the process that we work through. One of the other things that somebody brought up in the group, which I thought was pretty cool, was we ask for deposits. So we say, hey, here's the deposit. And he brought up a good point. He's like, a deposit sort of signifies, hey, this is like maybe refundable. But he said maybe break it into, he doesn't say deposits. He says, I'm going to give your first payment, like your first installment. And to me, I thought that was like really cool way of saying it, so people understand, hey, this isn't really a negotiable thing. Like once the deposit's paid, then people think that you can get a deposit back. So first payment I thought was really cool. The other thing too is we have language that's basically like, and I just say this to people because we're creating something out of nothing. Again, this has like never happened essentially, except for that one Nakashima one, where it was, if you pay a deposit and we don't come to agreement on design and finish, we will refund the deposit. But once you agree on the design and the finish, the deposit is no longer refundable. We will basically cancel the order. But if you've already agreed to that sort of thing, if you've already agreed to the design, you've already agreed to the finish, we've already started sort of the materials and doing the head work, the deposit is, no longer refundable. But anyways, I wanted to touch base on that whole point where it's like, hey, first payment versus deposit. I think that's kind of a cool way of sort of doing like a mental shift to change the way that they think, how clients can sort of think about it. So my takeaways for you guys, I'm hoping you can get, is like really map out what that journey looks like for the customer. What are the checkpoints between deposit and finished piece? making sure you're setting up the proper expectations from the beginning. Hey, this is going to be 8 weeks. This is going to be 12 weeks. This is going to be however long it takes for your queue time. The other thing that I did, and I kind of shared this story too, is recently what I've been doing is, it's like getting to be the holiday season. So people used to always want stuff. People still do want things for Thanksgiving. They want things for Christmas, all these specific timelines. So what I've started doing for people is saying, hey, we're within the range that we could potentially hit this. And 90% of our projects do run on time, but there are the 10% that don't. And I don't want your project to be one of the 10% that falls outside of our current queue time or our standard lead time. And so what that does is that sort of protects us against anything if it falls outside it. Like, we don't deliver by Christmas. I used to promise hard deadlines. Hey, if you order by today, because it's a great sales tactic. And if you have the room for the queue, I think it's a great way to close deals. You may end up picking up some of the clients that were coming to me and basically say, hey, we can deliver this by Christmas. We can deliver this by Thanksgiving or whatever. The other thing we do is if somebody wants it guaranteed and it's something that's reasonable within our queue, we do ask for a sort of like a upcharge for guaranteed delivery, right? So I'll just say, hey, it's going to be an extra X for us to get it, guarantee it by this date. If we don't get it by that date, we will refund like the additional cost for that. We'll refund the rush fee. We don't refund the entire project. We just say, hey, the rush fee, if the rush fee is $1,000, we'll refund you the $1,000 rush fee if we don't hit X date. But I've tried to get away from those. They've kind of created a lot of stress within the company, and it's just been something that hasn't been great for the company in general. And honestly, the sales that I've lost because of it hasn't been big and significant enough for me to like go back and take a look at it. All right, guys, hope this podcast was helpful. Let me know if you have any other questions. I'm starting to collect questions from you guys for the next Q&A session, the next office hours. If you have any questions or anything you want me to talk about on the podcast, any sort of topics, I'd love to get your input. The email is paul@thehandcraftednetwork.com. Again, that's paul@thehandcraftednetwork.com. I hope you guys are having a great one and you guys are staying busy through the fall. All right, guys. Peace.